Emmanuel Agyarko is a teenager from Kumasi in Ghana. He started seeing visions when he was a child, but it was once in a while. However, around 2009 it increased, and the Lord has shown him many visions since 2009. He has been to heaven and hell on numerous occasions. On November 24, 2011, in the afternoon after I had come home from school, I found myself taken to hell by the Lord Jesus to be shown various things. This is not the first time I have been taken to hell. I have had other encounters, and however this particular visit is different as it has many warnings to people who are still on earth. It is my prayer, that all who read or listen to this testimony, would take it serious and make sure they avoid hell at all costs, and align themselves under the lordship of the Lord Jesus Christ, and prepare for his coming. In a twinkle of an eye we were in hell. I saw 4 pastors in hell, who were there because they did not pay their tithes. One was called Albert and another was Daniel, a pastor of Church of Christ, and this church does not believe in tithing. Daniel said he told his congregation not to pay tithes as it was no longer necessary. He was in hell for basically 2 things. First of all, he was not paying tithes himself, and secondly, because he also stopped others from paying it. For Albert, his church believed in paying tithe, but he thought it was meant for only the congregation, and pastors were excluded from paying it. He wished he could come back to earth to start over again and pay his tithes. The other 2 pastors also did not pay, and one of them thought simply, he did not think he had to pay it, even though he knew he should be paying it, and the other thought ministering before God is not working, so he thought there was no need to pay any tithes. As we walked in those pits, I then was shown many pits full of ladies who used charms to get husbands to marry them. Some used lipsticks, facial makeup kits to seduce men. In one of the pits, I saw a woman named Amagamfwa, who attended Church of Pentecost. She went for charms from a fetish priest so she could control her husband like a dog. This is why she was in hell, because of using these evil charms. In the next pit, I saw another lady called Mavis, who had a pink lipstick on her mouth. She collected this seductive lipstick from an occult man, and it was meant to manipulate men to lust after her, and she would cause men to by all means look for money and give it to her. I then saw a young lady called Vivian, who seemed to be around 24 years old. She had filthy clothing on her in the form of a short indecent dress, and she had long acrylic nails, glossy-looking lipstick and a scarf on her head. She was in the pit because she went to idols for charms such that, whenever she slept with any man, she hijacked their semen to be used for witchcraft rituals. Through her acts, 5 men died. These rituals were made so she would obtain money. She said she used to dress indecently and in a seductive way whilst she was on earth, and lived at Kwashiman in Accra, Ghana. And as I was contemplating the scene above, I turned to the other side where I saw a certain woman who was a pastor's wife on earth, and she was called Alice. She also went for charms to charm her husband. She said she was a witch, and went for charms. She put her period blood, menses, in a palm nut soup, together with other things for the husband to eat. From that moment, the husband became like her son, so she could control and dominate him. She tied the husband and locked him inside a spiritual bottle. She also killed some of her church members, and when she died, she was immediately thrown in hell for what she had done. As the Lord Jesus took me on this tour, I was also shown a man called Kwame, who was into occultism. He had a ring on his manhood, sexual part, which made it possible for him to charm prostitutes. So after sleeping with the prostitutes, he then killed them and used their body parts in witchcraft rituals for other people. From this scene, I was then shown a tall man, who went for a charm to seduce young girls to come after him for sex. He had sex with about 1,000 young girls, and was at the University of Ghana, Legon in Accra. He went for penis enlargement and was given some things to plant. This spiritually nailed him to hell, and so in hell he has been nailed in his pit in hell. He was also a youth leader in his church, and had sex with many girls in the church. I later saw a pastor/evangelist called Francis who was in the Methodist Church. He went for a charm such that anything he said was not refuted. He said when he proposed to girls, they could not resist his charms, and he was also gay. I also saw a lady newscaster from Ghana who had died. She had facial makeup on. This was given to her by an Indian occultist. The purpose was to get fame, favor, and love from people. She eventually died from diabetes. I then saw 7 pastors, who had died in Ghana, and they were all in a secret society, and they were dressed like that. They were all prophets and had magic rings, which they used to perform miracles and prophesy in their churches. They were all screaming in pain. I also saw a gospel singer who died in Ghana. He said he was a pastor and he went to an Indian man to help him sing. He said this man gave him some oil and made him burn some incense and had a ring that gave him the authority to release many albums. He was required to sleep with women, so in the church he slept with most of the women. In hell, large worms were going through his body and he was seriously burning in the fire. He also had the number 666 written on his forehead. I saw a man called Abednego, who had a chain around his neck. Whilst on earth, whenever he went into danger, he used to vanish to escape from death. He eventually died and is now in hellfire eternal suffering. I saw some Ghanaians wearing different rings, gold, silver and brass, and they were all members of secret societies. I was then shown a former finance minister from Ghana, who was in hell for being a member of a secret society and also because of acquiring evil powers to give him a smart brain. I also saw a pastor from Ghana called Alfred, who had consulted the Queen of the Coast for empowerment. He had a ring and a white handkerchief. The handkerchief was for healing, and the ring was for casting out demons. The heat of his torment was 7 times more than the others who were there for charms. I then saw a lady from Nigeria, who also used charms to charm her husband, so that when the husband would die all the property would be willed to her favor. Unfortunately this woman died and found herself in hellfire. I then saw various students with bags at their backs. These were from primary, junior high, senior high and even university. These students went for charms to help them to be smart learned, hence they were brilliant in school. These could not complete their education and they all died. I also saw some students from a famous school in Kumasi, Ghana. I saw many medical doctors in hell, and one of them was called Dr. Frimpong, who when he saw me, started saying that when he became a doctor he was afraid, so he joined a secret society where he was given a ring to protect him. He died in an accident and found himself in hellfire. I saw many lawyers, judges, and justices all burning in hellfire. They were all part of secret societies and also consulted demons for their protection. They had rings that protected them whilst they were alive. I also saw a girl I knew personally at Kwadaso in Kumasi. She went to consult a fetish, so she could snatch her best friend's boyfriend. She died a shameful death afterwards and she is now in hell. I then saw a man called Budo, who was at Boakram in Kumasi, Ghana when he was alive. This man was so strong and powerful that even the police were scared of him. He told me, he went to Satan for powers to be very strong and powerful. He had protection against guns, knives, spears, and all other weapons. He said the powers made his body like a metal, so even a bullet would only mark the body but cannot penetrate, and he had to sell his soul to the devil in order to achieve that. This man is also now in hell and suffering as the demons use red-hot spears to pierce his body and tear his body apart. I then saw prostitutes who were being chased around by demons in hell. These demons were raping these girls in the midst of the fire. On earth, these girls went for charms to help them to conduct their business as prostitutes, so that they could not be harmed or killed. One of them was called Joanna, and she said I had the power to vanish when there was danger. All these girls were in hellfire suffering seriously. I saw one woman from Ghana called Auntie Afua. She went for holy water from a prophet in Ghana with a big gallon. She treated the water as her god. This water was demonic, and when she died she ended up in hell. I also saw Frank, who was also from Ghana. He went for a handkerchief from a prophet, so that any time he rubs it on his face, he gets favors everywhere he went. This handkerchief was demonic, and he died in his sins. I then saw at a distance away, a valley, and there were about 10,000 people burning in the larva of fire there. The demon was laughing and mocking them and said, all these used are magic rings. When I got close I just knew the name of one man in the group, called Pastor Afridi from Ghana. He said, he went for a ring for healing. There were about 2,000 pastors in that section of hell for using magical rings. These were from different countries in the world. I was then shown a young man I knew in Kumasi and had died. This man was handsome, and when alive he had many girlfriends. He was in hell for fornication. I then saw a hot band around his waist which was burning him and cutting him. He said, these are the useless things I went for while I was on earth. I then saw 5 demons with big bags containing different currencies, and these were being taken to those who did charms for people to get rich, on conditions that they would sell their souls to Satan and die after some years. For those who engage in these activities, as soon as you agree to this, you will have tied your soul in hell, and immediately you die, the demons will take you to hell fire. I saw the fetish priest tell a man that he would live for 7 years, but in reality this would be divided into 2 and this man would die only after 3.5 years. I saw a 43-year-old fair-looking Nigerian woman who was in hellfire because of shedding innocent blood. She stole a month-old baby from a hospital to be used for witchcraft rituals. She placed the baby in a wooden container and pounded the baby to death, like she was pounding cocoa yam for food. She then added a yellowish-green oil mixture, and transformed this into US dollars in the spirit realm. She was rejoicing over and shouting, "Money, money." This woman was being tormented by demons with 3-prong forks, telling her, "You wicked woman, praise Satan, this is all that you did when you were on earth." I then saw another woman who whilst on earth slept with many men, and afterwards, she collected the condoms and drained their semen into a container, and took it to a fetish for money rituals. This lady eventually died and she is now being tormented in hell fire. I then saw another section in hell in a valley overflowing with very hot larvae. The sign at this place read, "Mockers of God." Those in this section of hell had large golden rings on their fingers, and this made it possible for them to heal, cast out demons, turn curses into blessings, and perform many signs and wonders while they were on earth. These were only those who used golden rings. I then saw the demon in charge of that section, saying, "These people are there because of using magical rings to perform miracles." Each of the souls were in a pit which was a shoulder deep. These people were from many countries, but I saw 2 who were from Ghana. One man from Nigeria said, "God, save me," and a voice said, "I never knew you." Lucifer then came to that section of hell and laughed sarcastically and uncontrollably. I also saw Princess Diana. She was there for witchcraft, and in hell she looks deformed. She had a protective ring from India, but this obviously failed to save her on that fateful night. One of the people I also saw as part of a group of musicians was Michael Jackson. He had an Indian magic ring on his hand which made him to call on high powers of Satan. He said, "I went for a ring from the devil, he gave me fame and riches and voice like that of an angel, and now I am in hell suffering forever without Christ." It was this ring from India that gave him the high celebrity ranking and obtained power to sing amazingly. He is also among those who used charms during their lifetime on earth. I then saw a former Nigerian president called Sani Abacha, in the royal part in hell, where most world leaders go to. He said he caused the deaths of many thousands of Nigerian people, so he could use their body parts for rituals. I then saw Muammar Gaddafi, who was recently killed by the rebels in Libya. He said he is there because he didn't believe in Jesus. I was shown how he lived his life on earth. He had a magic chain which helped him vanish when the NATO forces and rebels attacked him. However, on that fateful day, after bathing, he forgot to put on the chain he got from an occult Grand Master in India. He said, "I should tell all Libya, sons and wives to turn to Christianity." He said he is suffering terribly and if they do not change, they would all end up in the place where he is. He even said, "Those who killed me should not come here." He then requested for a drop of water. The Lord then showed me a scene of people buying things on earth and going straight to hell. The shop was in Ghana, however, there are many all over the world and they sold demonic items used by the false prophets in their churches and by the fetish priests. These items included red, black, blue, magenta, purple, and green candles, different demonic oils, powder, water, padlocks, and other items used in the churches which used these things, and all those buying these demonic items were walking straight to hell, because these items were used for occult practices in the churches and fetish. The Lord then told me, that any time anyone gets a charm to do anything, that person automatically becomes a candidate of hell, as the name will be eventually written in hell. I then saw a demon in hell holding a container in his hand with many different rings. The demon then said that these are the rings being given to people on earth for charms. The rings were for protection, healing, spirituality, magical powers, knowledge and others. I was then shown many bottles, and some demons were taking them to earth to be used by people who charm others, and imprison their souls in bottles in the spiritual realm. Anyone who charms others becomes one with Lucifer and would end up in hell for punishment. I was shown various celebrities, members of the judiciary and politicians on their way to hell for using charms to help them perform well, attain high positions and also become famous. I saw one popular actress in Ghana, who places a charm in between her breasts so that she would charm people. She and many others also use charms to act, and are on their way to hell. I also saw many gospel and secular singers who were also on their way to hell for using charms to perform and record their albums. I was shown bodybuilders who were using certain potions to smear their bodies so they would be strong and win laurels. All these were on their way to hell as well. I then saw a 12-year-old boy who was a footballer. I asked Lord Jesus why he was there, and the Lord said, because he was into occultism. His teacher led him into this practice so he could be a great footballer. He was taken to an occultist for charms, and he used special oil to play well. I also saw another footballer from Brazil. He went to a wizard to help him play in the league. He refused to go back to thank the wizard, so he died on the pitch one day whilst playing a football match. I also saw Marc Vivien Foe, the Cameroonian footballer who died during a football match in France in 2003. He went to the Queen of the Coast for powers to play in the African Cup of Nations. After obtaining the powers, he was supposed to sacrifice his mother to the Queen of the Coast, but refused to do it. So during that fateful day, a spirit from the water kingdom struck his heart and killed him instantly on the pitch. So he was in hell for the occultism. In hell I saw him holding a human skull. I was then shown many teams and their supporters on their way to hell through the tunnels. The first team I saw was Chelsea Football Club. They were being led by Ivanovic, and followed by the other players in a straight line. They all had divers items in their hands, some had incense, oil, sacred rings and other things. I was then shown how all those who followed and supported this team with their hearts, were all following them in the tunnel to hellfire. I was then shown Ronaldinho, and certain young boys in the age range of 8 to 13 years. These boys were learning to play like him. I then saw a strange-looking demon, in the various forms, namely form of a woman, a monkey, and had wings like a bat. This is the demon that helps him to play well. So when these boys started rehearsing, this demon manifests and enters them. I saw him and all his fans, supporters, and the boys who are seeking to play like him walking in the tunnel on their way to hell. The next football star I saw was Kaká. He had a Bible in his right hand and a football in the left hand. I then saw a demon come to him, and told him, "Follow me and I would show you the path of life." This demon then took the Bible and placed it in his left hand and the football in his right hand. Sadly, this demon was leading him to hell too. I then saw a man who told him in Portuguese that you can be a Christian but everything you want to do in football I would do it for you. This man then did some rituals and a demon appeared, then he put some liquid upon his head and the demon entered into him. He then began to play skillfully. I saw Brazilian teenage footballers all following him to hell. I was then shown some people who were walking silently to hell, and they were the Brazilian football teams. I asked the Lord Jesus, "What have they done?" And he said it is because of idolatry. This is because football is a god, and those who support it will eventually end up in hell. I then saw retired professional footballer Pelé, who went into a cemetery at night to invoke a demon. This demon came to the players, and strange oil was rubbed on them and were asked not to touch any woman. Then I saw a strange demon, with the head of a man, but the body of a calf. This demon was leading the team including the old players like Pelé and others. I also saw the majority of Brazilians following them silently to hell because of the passion for football. I saw many footballers using rings, special oils, and other occult paraphernalia to ply their trade. However, the sad thing is, all these players were walking straight to hell together with their supporters. I saw the France football team also being led by Zidane, and other former players. Their fans and supporters were all following them to hell, and after this, I then saw the Egyptian national team being led by Abutrika, and all were on their way to hell as well. The team was being led by two demons in the form of cows. The major demon which helped them win the African Cup of Nations 7 times was Osiris. I was then shown all the teams of the world including the national team of Ghana, the Black Stars being followed by their supporters and fans. I then asked the Lord Jesus why is it so, and he said because they all belong to the enemy and are involved into the occult practices. Then the Lord said, I should warn that any person who is in the occult, cannot come to his kingdom. I saw all the football clubs arranged in levels on their way to hell silently, and followed closely by their fans. All the young boys who are following the professional footballers were all following them to hell. Some of these boys do not go to the fetish themselves, but their teachers and coaches go for the occult powers and give them the items and instructions on what to do. I was then shown 2 Christian teams playing a football match, and demons came there in the form of bears to sit and watch the match. They were so happy and waving. Other demons also appeared from the ground to manipulate the match as though they were the coaches, and even when Christians were playing a match, the demons had a right to be present, because football is a game which was designed by Lucifer to deceive the masses into hell. I then saw a different church match, and one man went to consult the occult to win the match. He was given a clock to go to the cemetery to sleep there from 12 midnight till 6 a.m. He then placed the clock near the opposing church's poles, so they would win the match. The other team too, had a man go to another fetish who gave him a strange liquid which he sprinkled on their jerseys. The demons then possessed the players and they played by the power of dwarfs on the field. I also saw a 17-year-old American boy called Philip. This boy had a spider tattoo on his back. He said his friend told him it would protect him from sickness. I then saw Lucifer pass by him mocking him. This boy was in church and thought he was going to heaven. Unfortunately, this boy is in hell now because of the tattoo. Lucifer then said, "All those who use tattoos, serve me." I saw many other people in this section of hell, all because they have been tattooed on their bodies. I then saw Lucifer transform himself into a young man with many tattoos on his body, with body piercings, and mocking them by quoting Leviticus 19:28, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you, I am the Lord." In hell, a red-hot metal had been attached to the tattoo designs and they were in much pain. I saw one boy who said he did not know about the consequences, he had just imitated a friend doing it, so he also did the same. However, this boy is also in hell in much pain for having a tattoo on his body. I moved a little further, and I saw this young man in a pit of fire with earrings on his ears. He said he went for seducing powers for girls to fall in love with him. He also had a ring he used to seduce both men and women to have sex with them. Most boys and men use this to seduce girls to have sex with them. This is also another occult practice that is going on now because a demonic spirit enters into the boys or men who do this and their lives are influenced negatively. I was then shown a library in hell. The room was very black with 3 candles, red, blue and black. The candles were not lit, but melted as though they were burning. I saw the Book of Mormon, books on astrology, white witchcraft, satanic Bible, books on evolution, 6th and 7th Book of Moses, hip-hop Bible, Book of Changes and other demonic books, some of which are used by various religions. Those using these books ended up in hell. I also saw many Christian books, and Lucifer then said, "My spirit lives in the books, and any book that has not the Spirit of God in the book is filled with my power." He also said any book that can lead people to hell is stored in that room. People have to be careful with the books they read, even including Christian titles. After I came out of the room, I was taken to a section in hell where I saw soldiers. These were soldiers when they were on earth from different countries. They were in a pool of burning fire. They went for protection against gunshots and other weapons. Some had the powers to vanish, others had clothes that were gunshot-proof. They did all sorts of occult practices for their protection whilst on earth. Each of them had 666 written on their foreheads. There were huge demons brutalizing these soldiers and torturing them. The demon in charge there was 19 feet and looked like a frog with 3 eyes. I saw a Ghanaian soldier who had a very sad story. He was into martial arts, and when he died a demon dragged him to that section of hell. Most people do not know, but all those who practice martial arts would end up in hellfire too. I was later shown 2 people who were in hell for smoking. So people have to know that smoking would take them to hell. I also saw a man who called saints when he was on earth, and this was a classified occult and he was suffering greatly. Afterwards I was taken back through the tunnel and I came back to earth.